Okay. Thanks everyone for attending tonight. I know this is adding another meeting to busy schedules for board members and staff, and thanks to the community members who are here as well. Let's go around and do or call to order and then do Pledge of Allegiance, please. If everybody can stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let's start with roll call. We start, just go around.
Brian Thompson.
Oh.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Michael Bauman, Superintendent.
Kim Baker.
Matt Swanson.
Tony Reichenberger.
Douglas Nino.
Zach Shumway.
And Amber Cameron. Great, and at our Tuesday meeting, when we planned this special meeting, both directors, Director Anderson expressed that she was unable to attend, and Director Swanson is able to be here for some of it, so I appreciate that, Matt. And then Director Carbone sends his regrets for tonight's meeting, but we'll catch up prior to Tuesday. So with that, this meeting is solely focused on thinking through the boundary changes that the school district needs to consider to make space for all the students in our district. My goal tonight is to try to get through questions, ideas, concerns that school board members have from ourselves, but also things that we received from the community. We've received lots of emails, and I think all of us have spent quite a bit of time reading those and thinking about the implications for families as we try to make decisions. I also think that we think best when we're as fresh as possible, and so my goal is to try to convene this meeting around 5:30. If we need a substantial amount of time more, we'll keep going, but I don't think having long stretches helps us make good decisions for this particular topic. Just a little context, in preparation for this meeting, board members were asked to send any questions, concerns, ideas that they had at the time, and those are all forwarded to the superintendent. And so I know as part of tonight's conversation, the superintendent and staff are going to go through some ideas and responses to our suggestions and questions. Everyone, I think, has a copy at the table here of the things that were sent in advance, and there might be other things that come up as we discuss tonight. I think ultimately we're having this meeting, and I know it's a lot to add another one this week, but we want to make the best informed decision for the district, for students, families, and staff. So that's why we're here, and want to kind of move us towards a decision. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Bauman for context setting.
Yeah, so thank you, Chair Cameron. Also want to amplify some of the points that the chair made, but I also think it's important to put context to what the district has done thus far. And we've put these charts up several times, but I'm not sure that the efficacy and the fidelity of that has had its intended effect. So the chart that I'm referring to is objectives and criteria. And we as a planning staff and administration looked at these three things. Ensure room for long-term growth. That's across the district with our boundary adjustment plan. Maintain a diverse and balanced student body. And there's a lot of pieces in there, and those are articulated as maintaining racial, socioeconomic, general education, special education diversity within the schools to the maximum extent possible. Another element was to maintain the desired daily experiences that are distilled or articulated in the school's strategic plan. And we wanted to, in particular, reduce movement of special education students to the extent possible, maintain the integrity of housing subdivisions to the greatest extent possible, keep attendance areas connected and logical as best that we can, given how the geography and the subdivisions are laid out on the ground in proximity to our schools as they exist in our system today, and then to minimize movement of students from current schools to the greatest extent possible. In no condition can we 100% not move students, and I don't think that's anybody's objective in any of this. We also are extremely sensitive to how we are laid out as schools currently, and by that I mean there's support systems, resourcing, and setups that exist in our schools now that can be construed as and assessed as somewhat customized. And I think those elements are important to understand as we are having the many conversations. And I predicate that on having had the opportunity to look at the questions from different board members. I am a person who believes you work and work and work to try to get to the best solution, and the best solution isn't the one in my head. It's a collective effort of collaboration and trying to get the best ideas, and I think that's part of what we're doing here. Now, there's a lot of folks in the room here that are actually staff, and those folks are subject matter experts in a variety of different areas. And as an open meeting, that was something I wanted to make sure that people know. A lot of our principals are here. They want to hear and understand directly what's going on. And then some of my staff within the district office as well, in case you have some questions, board members, that are very detailed and need the right amplification and the subject matter expertise. So as I look at the questions, one of my concerns is that maybe the objectives and the criteria that we have been working off of aren't aligned, to coin a phrase.
Yep.
And it would be helpful that as we're looking at this, that we get some articulation of that as planners on how to best redesign or refine our plan. So as the chair said, we had some questions. I know that Lucas took the opportunity to look at some of these, and we want to start to attempt to answer those. And I want to start, Director Baker, you're the first one on this list here.
Sure.
Can I quick ask? All right. Before we jump into this, I just want to make sure that we're understanding. So I've had thoughts over the past couple days on how we want to approach this. Right now, we have been on a path on what would a major overhaul look like. And so when I look at the enrollment counts in Infinite Campus, as I look at the data, there's a lot of data that shows the only major mission critical issue right now is Highview, sitting at 106%. And so I've been teasing out an idea of us considering, is there a path option A, focusing on that, how would we solve that today for next year, and then have a separate conversation as a option 2 or a path 2 is what does the major design look like? And I think the major design look like is needed to ensure that the short-term solution feeds into that major solution. But for now, I think solving the major solution is going to take a while, but can we find alignment on the very immediate short term in that one location for next fall? I would like us to focus on that if we can, if that's hijacking the agenda.
I don't know if it's hijacking anything, it's your meeting. My concern with that has to do with going back to the first effort at this in '23, when we did an extensive process. Teamworks, I think, was the vendor that came in to help with that process, and we did a localized solution. When I returned here, we went through another attempt at trying to do a boundary adjustment in order to resolve that problem, and we remain in that localized solution. But I think the second and third order effect of that has been that our community looks at that and they don't actually know all the inside baseball on
Yeah.
that, and it looks like we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
because we're not getting to a solution that has longer-term stability for our community.
Yep.
And I think I was charged with finding that sort of solution. And I will also tell you, with great compassion, I understand the frustration that our community has with that. And I also feel that we have to confront the reality of the situation and solve it, and do that now for the longer term. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and I just want to be candid about that and make sure that that's at least on the table, because what I think you're suggesting, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is we do a localized solution again, and then we spend more time to get a longer-term solution, which is fine. We absolutely, that's where the will of the board is to go. But it wasn't the charge I believe I was given.
No, I would agree.
I'm wondering if, by going through some of these responses, those of the 5 of us that are here tonight can start to think about that question. Like, do we want to maintain with objective 1, make a long-term plan, or are we wondering if it's time to pause and pursue a more localized? Because I think, I know your opinion for sure.
Yep. Well,
I don't know if it's everyone's opinion.
Agreed.
So, yeah.
The localized, can we spend 10 minutes on the localized one? Because it's a fairly quick one, I think.
How about, can we go through these and then do that?
Yeah,
Like,
that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
So I was going to start with Director Baker. So you asked a question.
So we've been through boundary changes before, and one of the things that we struggled with last time is that every time we would come up with a scenario, there's always something we adjust, and then it makes the half of people happy and half the people unhappy, because no matter what we adjust, kids have to move, right? I felt like with the last adjustment that we had, it minimized the number of multiple movers. It made some thoughtful planning around those things. Is it perfect? No, but nothing's going to be perfect. No matter how many times we rearrange this, we're still going to be faced with the thought that kids have to move. Is it something that's easy for students? No. But I also know that students respond to the adults that are around them and how they handle those situations. And I think what's a secondary concern that we have to address is, what is our transition plan for those students that are moving to different buildings, particularly the students that had multiple moves, making sure that we have thoughtful planning in the spring, over the summer, to make sure that students feel comfortable in those environments. I kind of look at it the same way that we plan around classrooms. Like, we meet and we talk about students, we talk about relationships, we talk about which teacher is going to work best with which student. And again, if you're moving students into multiple buildings, I want to make sure staff have the opportunity and the time to be able to meet with a teacher that's maybe in the different elementary buildings, so we can talk about making thoughtful classroom designs and plans for our kids. I think that's important, because at the forefront, all of our decisions should be what's best for kids. The other things that I were concerned about were students with disabilities, and making sure that they had multiple options beyond just regular planning, to make sure that they can be successful in those transitions. Students with disabilities need more time to explore the building, to know where things are, to be familiar with the setting, to be familiar with the people. And it may take more than one transition meeting with their IEP team to make sure those things happen. There are also students that have specific needs that would go beyond just the team at the IEP meeting. I want to make sure that the team that's receiving that student is at the IEP meeting, so they can talk about, we need these types of visual schedules, we need these types of supports within the environment, so that we're setting students up for success with these moves. And I want to be thoughtful and planful on how we share these plans with the adults that are receiving kids, because again, they're going to take that from us. Like, is it going to be a positive or a negative situation? And kids naturally go through transitions every year, and it's difficult. You get used to a classroom, you're there all year, it's like a family. And then you have to pick up and move the next school year. But we're also very thoughtful in how we do that. We prepare kids for it, we talk about it. This is what's gonna happen in 4th grade. This is where 4th grade is in the building. This is your gym teacher next year. We can do those same things in these situations. I just don't want it to be, oh, you're moving, that's it. Like, I just think that we need to be very specific with this, particularly sensitive to the students that are moving multiple times. So those were my questions, and I'm looking at your draft here.
So, well, there's two things I'd like to do. We understand and have some experience with this. I'm gonna put Tabor on the spot because he didn't take the batteries out of his jacket this morning. But Tabor, I would like you to maybe articulate from your experience and how you have dealt with new kids coming into your building and how you handle and support transitions, if you're okay with that.
100%. I would say one of the ways that we do it is what Michael called me out for, is the bright yellow jacket. This is one of our tools that we use, is houses, and we get everybody into a group. No surprise, I'm on the yellow house, and so this is just a tool to make the school smaller. We do this for all students, and all of our schools do similar things. So we have connections and we work to make those pieces. So we bring those students in, we make them part of our community, we build the community, and then as new students come in, our communities evolve and change. And we work tirelessly to meet those needs and continue evolving. So we got to do this with an extra focus 2 years ago when we made the boundary changes. We hosted meet the school events. We were out and about. We went to, as principals, we took turns going to other schools so that we could meet the students who are going to move, answer questions, talk about things. I think in the end that it wasn't as big of a deal for the students as maybe the adults we make it to be, because it's a big deal for us. But for our students, it's pretty low key, especially when they get to move as a group. They get to meet new friends, they get to see familiar faces and make some of those connections. And together we as a team pulled that off pretty well.
Can I ask one question in response to that? One of the things that I know specifically with students with disabilities, they have a very tight-knit group of people within the building that they trust and they feel secure with. Would it be possible when you do some of these different back-to-school nights or meet the new staff that we did them on different nights so we could be thoughtful that the people that are handing off the students are able to attend at that building? Because I think it would mean more to say, hey, this is my third grade teacher, I see her in the hallway, but she's here telling me this is my fourth grade teacher and he's a really great guy. You know, I just think that that would be helpful because they take their cues from us and having the ability to do that.
Would it be okay if we spend a little bit less time on the implementation, but more on how we're gonna get there? I don't want to be here for an hour and a half.
Right, what I was gonna say is I think no matter what we decide, that an implementation plan will be robust.
Yes, agreed.
And so I think that's important for families, for us to know, and appreciate the principals thinking through that already, no matter what decision we made today. Does that work? We don't need to go through every element. Is that okay with you? Okay. Matt, do you want to talk about your questions? Does that work?
Sure.
And I
guess
align with some of them, as you know, so.
Yeah, they kind of relate to Brian's in a certain sense where I think we all just have to acknowledge that people are going to have to move out of Highview this next year and Century as well. Like, we just have to make those adjustments. I actually feel like we're not that far off, if far off at all, on the middle school side. But elementary school side, my question, I guess, for the district was, and the planning team, because the other schools are not at capacity, a lot of the other schools are not at capacity, if we take care of Highview, can we do more of a phased approach for the other schools where the end goal is the plan that's currently proposed to have the capacities level out, but we do it over a course of years where students are allowed to matriculate through their school, and any new students would stay in the new zoned areas. But if you're currently, for instance, for my cul-de-sac, my kids would continue to go to Lake Marion until they're out of Lake Marion, and then my house would now be an Eastview house, because there's still room in Lake Marion right now. Because right now we're asking essentially, hey, we're going to make room for no one in certain instances. So to empty the schools now or make room for future development that isn't quite here, if we have the possibility of doing it in a phased approach, it seems like it would be better for our students and cause less disruption. I do realize this would probably be adding a couple stops on bus routes, for the areas that are moving, because there would be theoretically for instance, if my neighbor a new neighbor moved in, they would be an Eastview family, because they don't have students going right now to Lake Marion, so you'd need a different bus stop. Which might seem weird, but we're already gonna have 2 bus stops because, you know, right across the street from me is Lake Marion, and now we're Eastview. So there's gonna be 2 bus stops anyways. What's that?
I'm not aligned with that one.
It has to happen. You're
Well-
gonna have a boundary line wherever. I'm just on the edge of the boundary
Agreed,
line.
but
Yeah.
I agree, but
I'm not by the school.
yes.
I'm just on the edge of the
I'll show
boundary,
my point.
which is
Yeah.
fine, right?
Okay.
And we can, because we can make these lines, we could do the switch and kids would be fine. But if it's not that much more expense
Yeah.
to do this phased approach, and it's not like we need the space in every school right now, why not review it and see
I
if
know,
we
I
can
was
make it happen?
interested too in thinking
Yeah.
about this, like what would the cost be?
Mhm.
To allow students to stay, and they could either like, the plan is that they stay, or there could be an opt-in, perhaps option.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think busing is a big question here, but
But I think staffing is also a question.
Yeah,
Because we
staffing.
can't really control, because then we're gonna have kids that are moving into certain neighborhoods that, like he said, his neighbor could be, nope, now you've moved in the middle of the school year. So we have to think about, we can't just add another classroom willy-nilly, how we do things. Like, it's going to impact the classrooms too.
Well, they'd have to register, right? My neighborhood now would be Eastview as we're amending it, right? But if you want to go to Eastview, we could go to Eastview. If you want to stay at Lake Marion, you'd have to register and say, hey, is there space? I'm going to stay at Lake Marion.
I would prefer that we leverage the intra-district model process for
Mhm.
that to occur. A boundary area is zoned to go to a certain area, and that's where it goes. Now, let's find out if there's capacity in other schools where you can intra-district in, and then maybe we can ensure that those kids that were previously have priority. That would be the better method. That way, we're clearly communicating this section goes to a XYZ school. Now, I do agree with the phased approach. Maybe year 1, that school, that boundary stays in the current school. Year 2, you're now moving to the next area that you belong in.
If it doesn't conflict with.
If it does, right.
With growth, right?
Yes, agreed,
I mean, if we're
agreed.
thinking, hey, there's this area down here that's gonna come on, and it's gonna flood kids at Lake Marion.
Yes.
We don't wanna
Yep.
run into a population issue at Lake Marion.
Well,
right?
my problem with that, beyond the staffing, is now you're shifting boundaries like all the time.
Well, you're shifting boundaries towards the end state.
Yeah,
And so this is why there's a 2-part path. What is the short term? What is the long term? And then the incremental steps to get to that long term. That's how because the incremental steps would be, you're not moving kids multiple times. You're not moving boundaries multiple times to get to that end state. Whenever it's the right time for that boundary to move to the end state, that's when it moves.
Yeah, you're only accommodating who would be the movers if we
Yes.
just did it.
Yes.
We just did it right now, and I don't know what the number is, Lucas, on the movers.
For elementary,
I mean,
total?
however.
568 total
Yeah,
movers.
so potentially 560. It's going to be a lesser number because Highview, we just have to move kids.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't be able to get that combination, unfortunately, or not all, I mean, a portion of them wouldn't. Because again, Highview doesn't need to be 65% next year.
No.
Right? It could be 75%, 80%. I mean, we have to make room in the future.
Yes.
So if the boundaries are going to be what were proposed, and that's the goal, well, what if it takes us 3-4 years to get there, right? I mean, you make the boundaries, but then, for instance, my neighborhood's a simple example. There's 13 kids in elementary school. Those are the 13 kids that you're concerned with in our zone. You know, the area that's going to Christina Huddleston from Eastview right now, there probably aren't that many kids there. Those are the kids. But otherwise, everybody else in the neighborhood is now in the new boundary zone, right?
I know you, Michael, you already added a few comments, but what are your thoughts about that type of idea, beyond what you already said?
Well, I guess I would have to gauge out the flow in and out of there, and then do I have to add classroom space, doing mid-year movement of teachers?
Which isn't allowed, right?
Well, why would you?
Actually?
Yeah,
Why would that come
that
up,
be
though?
needed?
Yeah, I don't know. 'cause
Okay.
Sure.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it is or is not needed. I
Okay.
also, I don't know, Robin, from your perspective on administering the intra-district and/or managing that, or Douglas, on how we would be able to institute that kind of movement in the system. because the other thing I have to do is keep the system and the communication with each of those families straight. Any thoughts?
Well, right now, intra-district transfer is not closed for the
Correct.
20. Yeah, so we're accepting applications. During the last boundary change, we did close it, but also the plan that you guys are talking about would, if you're an approved intra-district transfer student, you provide your transportation. We can't have buses going everywhere, do you know what I mean? So that's part of it too, and it's based on numbers at each school in each grade level. So it would be whatever capacity at each grade level, the total capacity at the school and then the grade level. So like right now, we have a chart that shows capacity for this year, and he's red. Like, it's, no, no one can get it. But if it's green, we have availability, but it's still based on the numbers and growth. So.
And I don't know if Dave, based on what you heard, Dave Moore is transportation planner for Schmitty and Sons. Based on what you heard?
Well, I mean, to just keep track of the kids. So my biggest fear, I roll up to the neighborhood, you're stopped within 2 minutes of the other school stop. Susie, Timmy, whoever gets on the wrong bus. Now I've just taken her to Lakeville school because she accidentally got on the wrong bus, and that doesn't happen. Not often, but that's probably my biggest concern is kids. I'm gonna have 2 buses following each other down the same road.
Yeah.
I mean, we have that at Boundaries right now. Like, I mean, there's a Kenwood and a Century stop, like kitty corner from each other in my neighborhood.
But not at the same intersection. So if you live in a cul-de-sac and half that cul-de-sac has got some kids going to one school, and now you're staying at the home school, I'm gonna need to stop at that cul-de-sac because nobody wants to walk. I already get enough complaints about that I'm making people walk too far. I mean, to be really honest, sorry. But, so they're not gonna wanna be like, oh, we're just gonna move the bus stop here, and then somebody's gonna be mad because we moved the bus stop away from their house. So that's my only concern, is now I'm gonna be traveling down the same road, same buses, and kids are gonna go to the wrong places.
Well, and we can work that out. I just want you
Yeah.
to have awareness of the other.
I do realize there'd be some administrative legwork, but if the goal is like the least amount of complications and stress on these kids, then it's, I mean, you can pay it on the admin side, or you can pay it on the counseling side,
What I was, when you and I touched base about this idea, I mean, my thought was, let's get the 5th graders through. Like, if we go with E1, but let current students grandfather in. Like, if we got the 5th graders through, how much cushion do we have until we get into a overpopulation issue at any of the schools? Like, how many grades could actually matriculate before there's a concern? Knowing that the new builds are happening over time. So, just something to think about. Tony, do you want to go into yours?
Well, I mean, it's one of the things I actually talked about is just the ability. Yeah, high view is the problem. I mean, everybody knows it. For the most part, I think most parents in Lakeville are fine. They're going to the same schools. It's the ones that are moving that are upset, rightfully so, and scared and worrying. And the most we can do to minimize the impact on their lives, the happier everyone's going to be. I thought the idea of grandfathering in the district lines makes some level of sense in some capacity. One of the things I was interested in is just knowing the breakdown of Highview and probably the surrounding schools that are impacted, those boundaries, based on a grade level. Who's, if someone in 1st or 2nd grade now, the parent doesn't want them to move from Highview to Eastview or from, Cherryview or however it gets moved, how does that impact the individual school? How many people are, is it a few people? Is it a lot of people? Will any of them go over capacity? That's, that's what I was interested in. Looking at the map between Eastview and what will be going to Christina Huddleston, I was curious why it cuts into south of 185th. To me, 185th seems to me to be a pretty notable dividing line. It's a good boundary.
What schools did you say again? Sorry.
It's this area just south of 185. The area from Eastview that's going to be going to Christina Huddleston.
Okay.
It is going down south more, and I kind of get that. I mean, if the boundaries are going to change and we have to adjust, I understand. But I'm wondering what the purpose of was going below 185th. You know, to me, I think one of the things that a lot of parents and a lot of people understand, they understand landmarks, they understand tangible boundaries that make sense. One of the things I like about the new boundaries is how it uses, for instance, Dodd as a nice boundary line for much of the district for Highview. That makes sense to me. It makes sense to parents who can see that and say, okay, this is a major road. This is going to be a dividing line. I think the more we can utilize, infrastructure like that, obvious markers like that to divide areas, I think the more people will understand it. And that just, to me, makes sense. I know we talked about this at the last meeting, and it was long-term, the M2 portion, which is way up in the northwest corner of the district, and then that would eventually go to, if M2 was approved, it would go, all those kids would go to McGuire. That makes no sense to me. Geography does matter when making these districts. Why are we sending the people who are in the most northwest corner to the most southeast school? People would look at that and be like, I don't get it. Why are we doing that? There's got to be a more efficient, more effective way. And I think that sums up kind of how I'm approaching this generally. And looking at Matt's comments about Queen Anne Court, it's closer to Orchard Lake. It makes more sense even from that to go to Christina Huddleston, because it's basically Christina Huddleston's on the way. It's right there. Those two are both proximately more proximate to where that is located than Eastview. So it's just maintaining that level of geographic familiarity and common geographic boundary lines just makes more sense to me than some of the items. Again, like Highview, I get the problem. I get how we're approaching it, and I think the phased-in approach and the grandfather approach makes sense to me in some capacity, and it's just a matter of how we get from A to B.
I agree that, like, if we could draw boundaries with roads or forests or whatever that makes the most sense, I feel like that logically makes sense, but I think, and I don't know if either of you want to jump in, but I think every time I've asked about, like, well, could we move a line here instead? It's like, well, that throws off, like, the composition of that school. And so I think a lot of the lines are drawn to keep us both in compliance with statute, but also goals of the district. I don't know if that's.
And I do get that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I know there are
Yeah.
socioeconomic, there's other factors that factor into that. But I don't think, I mean, looking at this, I don't think the numbers that are below 185th are going to throw that off entirely that much.
Do you want to answer the 185th?
Yeah.
Sure. So the 185th question basically was twofold. This whole process is trade-offs. Okay, if we're not going to move that, then what are we going to move in order to meet the criteria of balancing out the schools, which is the chief criteria that we're going after. So in that area there, I needed to carve more room out of Eastview. There was room in Huddleston for it. I couldn't take room out of, I couldn't put them into Lake Marion, for instance, because I need to take room out of there so we can fit Lakeview students into there. It's a puzzle piece of those kinds of things. So the twofold was to remove some students out of Eastview to make more room for putting the Crescent Ridge neighborhood into Eastview, because it was so much larger than the Chokecherry and the Feldman that we didn't want to move. And so to do that trade-off, I had to make more room, put them into Huddleston. That has another effect of being able to bulk up Huddleston more for the future, so that it's got it's on the low growth side of things no new housing in that area, so it's better to bulk up the Huddleston so that as it either declines or plateaus, can continue to be a fairly robust size school. And that's the reason that neighborhood was added on in this last revision, was that shuffling of, okay, we want to make more room for Lakeview, don't want to overload Lake Marion, we need to make more room in Eastview, therefore.
Everything kind of goes back to the criteria, right? What's
Right.
designed here is predicated on, if you recall, the E1 layout, right? And what the end state is in terms of capacity in our buildings in order to assimilate future growth. That's that is what the conversation and what these questions are changing that. And we would need some clear criteria direction, and we will redesign the map. We can do that. But from November, and actually going all the way back, we've had criteria articulated, and I will ask again politely, if you tell me what the criteria is for the design, I will do that. But it won't, it brings the questions that you ask, right? Why 185th, or why not this, or why not naturally that? And if geography is the thing, that's criteria, and if that's the thing, I have to figure out how to balance socioeconomic and other requirements within that, so I can give you that answer. And I think things just kind of distill back there. I try to use a process of what I believe I was told was the criteria. And you were real specific about that.
Yep.
And that's why I tried to do it this way, because it's too difficult to please everybody. And I just want to ask again, if we can maybe distill it to some criterion, then we can maybe match some of that stuff.
I don't want it to, what I'm saying, and I don't want it to reflect, like, make it seem like nobody's done a good job. I think everybody's done a really
No,
great
I'm
job
not-
putting this together so far.
Just so, Tony, just so you know,
I get it.
that's not what I'm saying.
No.
I'm saying as staff planners,
Yeah.
administrators,
They're-
whatever term you want to use for us, if we know what the criteria is clearly articulated, I think we have enough smart people to lay that out. And I'm taking personal responsibility for the fact that this is laid out based on the criteria that we have been articulating, and I know that's frustrating.
And kind of what I'm saying is that, like, all these different factors, and there are different, priorities and different factors and variables that factor in it, collectively as a whole, those are a little bit abstract. I mean, they are abstract. It's like putting it all together and putting together a plan that incorporates all of those various things into the, and it's like without proper instruction as far as how we prioritize this, and this, it's confusing. It's not helpful. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, it's not, if you prioritize one factor over all the others, you end up with situations where you get odd results that you're like, okay, now that doesn't look right. And it's just like, and that's kind of where we're trying to get to maybe here, or maybe like a positive result.
Okay.
And that's just kind of what I'm saying. I think what everyone's done has been fantastic.
All right, cool.
I just do think that there's some strange questions here that like might be easily fixed.
Douglas, you have something to add to that?
Yeah, another example, and I appreciate, you did point out that, we did use DOT and circumstances, so it's not like we disregarded the
Right.
geography. You pointed that out. It's just that, as you were saying, when you choose one priority of another, well then, okay, I have to choose this priority, so this is how this happens. The other example you brought up was the M2 with, why would we bring all these students up here, down over here? Because we didn't want to move the Barris Ridge and Legacy students. So where else are we going to get them? That's how that happens.
You got to go
Matt,
further
do you
up
wanna-
and then almost to the east. Like, you got to cover those folks.
And the advantage of that would be that they continue on to South together.
Yeah, it seems like most of our challenges is with the, or not, I shouldn't say challenges, most of our interest in tonight is about elementary. It seems like we're fairly, and maybe you can add if you're not, but closer to the middle school in the sense that, as far as I can tell, correct me if I'm wrong, the boundaries basically follow north-south, with Kenwood continuing to be the split. And I think that is nice for kids to like stay with peer groups as much as possible. Matt, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to clarify, I don't not like the map. I mean, I think you do kind of create somewhat of a circle around the schools, and the location of the schools just make it very difficult. You know, that's the reality. We can redraw lines wherever we want. I think the challenge here is just exacerbated because you did a major shift 2 years ago, right?
Yes.
And so that's why, again, if we hadn't done that, I wouldn't be as opposed to just saying, let's just do a hard change.
Yeah.
But putting kids through that, you know, twice or multiple times in 2 years, I'm like, maybe we can have some additional consideration here. But otherwise, I like where we could get with this, right? I think this is could be a great end result. I guess my only question was, can we phase it so it doesn't affect the kids as much? I did want to clarify Queen Anne Court too, because, and somebody actually, we get a lot of emails, and somebody actually raised this in an email, because Queen Anne Court is the only Eastview neighborhood that then goes on to McGuire and South High School. And I don't know if the question, if the answer is we just can't handle that population at Orchard Lake, those 34 kids, or if there's another option to address that.
You can handle them at Orchard Lake. The issue is the criteria
Well,
that was established.
Just, Orchard Lake is.
And it's 333 kids. You can fit
Okay,
500.
but it's also got a school and a school with Impact Academy that makes it a little bit more, it's non-standard to the rest of our elementary schools. So that program has, I don't know if we would have to push kids into there that maybe didn't want to be in there. And that's a legacy problem that is in need of a solution, but now's not the time to go through that, other than to say that Impact Academy is a school and a school, and it's not standard like every other school that we have. So when you talk about it in terms of enrollment, I think that's an anomaly scenario for us.
I think I had a similar question with you around Queen Anne neighborhood. And that is, I think that's about the 6% of students from Eastview that would attend McGuire. How many students is that?
It's 29.
29 per year?
No, 29 total.
So like, divided by 6, so like, we're talking just like a couple students each year that would have to.
Roughly.
I feel like most of the splits are enough like you'd be moving with enough of your students to a school. That one seems really low, and so just, yeah. Brian, I think you have similar thoughts to Carly with some of this. Do you want to
that all
share
right?
your perspective?
I'd like to get more tactical and just actually provide a solution and then get your feedback
solution,
on
yeah.
my provide my solution and so forth. And so south of 185th, there's going to be some growth there. I know that Preserve has 49 locations coming. Orchard has Kenyon at Green. I think there's 65. Roughly, I don't know, 150 additional headcount is what I'm envisioning over the next however many years it takes for that to develop. But south of 185th, there's going to be growth there. That's going to happen. But the bottom line is that can we go to Infinite Campus, or can we go somewhere that can show what is our current enrollment metrics right now on the screens, or can we not do that? I just want to make sure that we all are on the same page with what problem are we trying to solve in elementary. And so let's put all the criteria just off to the side for just a moment, the future state design for just a moment, and see like where are we and what are we trying to do. Because when I look at the enrollment counts on Infinite Campus in all of our 9 elementary schools, and maybe it might be in one of your PowerPoint slides or that you had, the only school that is above 83% is Highview, and it's 105.9%. And so they've got 741 kids. And I don't know if you can zoom in or not, but the capacity is 700. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve. Whatever design that we align on with any changes today, we do need to also think about all of the developments that will be coming. And so will any minor change that we make today, will the existing schools and their current capacity in elementary be able to absorb those developments? Now, I don't have the answer for that, but that might be an exercise part 2. But the exercise part 1 we've got to solve is Highview. Again, it's 741 kids. We've got Christina Huddleston sitting at 59.7, Cherry View sitting at 70%, and I think I want you to remember that 70% at Cherry View because I'm going to come back to that. Eastview 62. So the bottom line, if like there isn't a mission critical change except for Highview right now for elementary. And all right, so the proposal that I have is if we can go to the interactive attendance map and zoom in on Highview right now. The current model, that's a future state design. If we could do the current model that we have today. The current model that we have today is you've got Summerlin and Crest Ridge on the bottom.
Elementary current,
There it is, right
Yep.
there.
So the current design that we have today that has been enforced for the past year and a half, because we're in the second year of this particular boundary change. Summerlin and Crescent Ridge, those two bottom kind of segments is about 250 kids, 271 kids. No matter what, those kids have to move eventually. In the larger design scheme, there isn't going to be capacity for them to be in Highview or at Lake Marion. There's too many kids in that bucket. But these kids would be moving 3 times in the course of their entire elementary years. So if you're a second grader I'm assuming they came from Eastview, they moved to Highview for 4th grade and 5th grade, and then they're moving again for their 5th grade. And so my recommendation is that what can we do, because looking at the enrollment counts at all the other elementary schools, none of them are mission critical. Can we hold off for 1 more year to show a little bit more stability, let these 5th graders graduate elementary, and then move on? And then for those who ended 5th grade and go into 6th grade, well, for wherever they're at, 3 years there, and maybe that's a separate conversation. I haven't looked at middle school very closely. But for Highview, here's my solution. If you can zoom in, or maybe you can go to Google Earth on Pinnacle Reserve towards the top, there is a creek that goes diagonal from Dodd all the way into Cherry Views, south of 182nd Street West and Hidden Creek Trail. So I don't know if there's a way you can make a box or XYZ. I don't know if you go in the Word document that was passed out. If you go to the last page, top image, you'll see kind of like where it's crossed out. The image that you're seeing is actually the future state design, and then the top part of that image already goes to Cherry View in the future state design. My recommendation is what would it look like if we actually made the bottom part of that actually go to Cherry View. So the head count for that section, right, is what do we land on? 151-ish. Maybe I can go to Douglas. How many students are currently in that population?
In the
100, you said this morning it was 156, 157.
157?
Can I clarify that this is your proposal just for this next, like a short-term solution to
Yes.
bring Highview down to what capacity?
Yes.
I think Brian wants to go back to a localized.
I want to go back to a localized
rather than
model.
The original.
And let me, yeah.
But I want to know, like, what does that, like, just moving that neighborhood to Cherry View, what does it bring Highview's capacity to? Because
Well-
I'm not in alignment to leave Highview over capacity.
Yep,
how it
totally
is.
makes sense. So Highview right now is sitting at about 750. You've got about 150 kids in this bucket. That would drop them down to about 600. If the capacity is 700, you're sitting at about 85%. That's where Highview would be if the only change that you made right now was move that group up north to Cherry View.
So there would
Now,
also be multiple movers.
pardon me?
They are-
Yes, they would
okay.
be multiple
So you're
movers.
just switching multiple movers.
We are, but
Okay.
these multiple movers would ultimately end up being at Cherry View anyways.
With the new plan.
With the new plan,
With the E1.
correct, yep. And I don't know if this group came from Cherry View before or not. And so then, if you end up moving
When you
them.
say this group, do you mean the Summerlin group, or do you mean this
Pinnacle.
group?
The Pinnacle.
Pinnacle.
Yeah, that group that is.
Do you know the answer to
Summers
that?
Creek.
What are you talking, oh, the multiple movers?
Did the Pinnacle neighborhood, yeah, move from Cherry View to Highview?
Pinnacle neighborhood was, I believe, in Oak Hills, but I can.
Oak
It was,
Hills?
like I say, it was a tapestry, it was a
It was, yeah,
fruitel.
it was all weird.
Because it was
Yeah.
a new
Yep.
development,
Yep.
and we used to do
Right.
it that
Got it.
way.
Yep.
Uh,
I think because of that move, if you ended up, because it's a very clear division, and you can move the 150 students up, it drops Highview down to 600 students, 85%, and we've got a little bit of a breathing room. Knowing that we can go to 750 kids, obviously we don't want to, but we know that we can handle it if need be. But moving those kids, those students up to Cherry View will give us some flexibility. Now for the left side of Pinnacle, you've got Caslano, and you've got about 53 kids. So if you go back to if you go to that map on the left-hand side, the little blue that's kind of sticking into Caslano, you've got 53 kids there right now. The south of Caslano, they're currently zoned to go to Eastview, and it's super wonky, obviously. If we assume 53 more kids would be added with that Caslano, that group, because it's a neighborhood, it could potentially move our 600 estimated students to 650. Now, we'll get closer to 90. But this is just a one-year temporary Band-Aid until we do the major shift in 2027. And then in Autumn Hill,
So if this is just the first shift, how is this preventing any additional kids? Like, I just think we're prolonging it over
Well-
several years instead of just doing it and getting done with.
so
Right, like-
but what we're doing is we're minimizing the amount of major moves that we can right now. Because,
But they're gonna be moved anyway.
right, but yes, they are going to be moved, but can we have these students be in their schools for at least 3 years instead of 2?
So you're just really, the fifth grade class is the one that would.
But we'll
would
have
be-
the same situation again, because then we'll
Yes.
have fifth graders the next year that'll have the same.
Right.
So again, we're not changing
But we're making a
anything.
massive change for all the boundary changes. It's not just one location, because we're gonna make changes across the board.
So
But
why,
you're just putting lines in different spots.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Because, I
Yes.
mean, we're still dealing with the same problems, right? You want to address Highview.
Yes.
But then we're also shifting everyone up, essentially, up and west.
Yeah.
To make room for, the southwest growth, the east growth.
But there's no need to make a major shift right now.
Yeah,
Like-
but.
Like, why
what's-
why would we want to do this when we don't need to make a major shift? None of the buildings show that we need to.
So question's timing, right? Timing, so.
Yeah, but why do we want to make a shift? Like, I have a tough time making a boundary shift in like 2 years versus what would be the disadvantage of holding it off for 1 more year?
Sure, so what would be your objection if we looked at the proposed boundary changes, but phased it, where you didn't shift everyone right away? You shifted to address Highview and Century. And then we still accomplished what the second goal was to, level out the schools. But it's,
I wasn't tracking on that one. Can you, what are you thinking?
so you're just saying, let's move a different group of kids away from Highview now. We need to move a group.
A group, no matter
Yeah.
what.
Why don't we
Yep.
move a group that is already in the current map, so we have some certainty for people moving forward, like, hey, this is the map we want to get to, right?
Yes. Yep.
That's going to be the map, because it's not, I mean, could you find agreement with the current map, but just, you don't like the timing?
I'm not aligned with the current map. I don't think so, because I think there is a pocket north of, hang on, Summerlin. So Summers Creek,
Or something close to the current
Right.
map, I should say.
yes,
Yeah.
something close. I mean, I think there are pockets here that I don't like. For example, in Oak Hills, like I don't want that section on the left-hand side. How do we preserve this boundary has already been approved 2 years ago.
the
And
left-hand
so,
side's been there for decades, or for a decade.
Yeah.
Like, these are not recent changes for like
For Oak Hills?
for example. Yeah.
so the box that we're sending over to Christina Huddleston, like that's new.
Right, that is new.
Right,
Yes.
and so I think that should stay in Oak Hills, right?
So I guess,
I mean, and then you've got a little section down Cherry View that currently goes to Eastview, that now is going back to Cherry View. And then I guess the concern that I have is that you've got this Pinnacle Reserve area, right? You're breaking that boundary up a little bit towards the top. It could be a cleaner cut in my mind if you do that diagonal, and then you can go further eastwards. But
So I think, for me, it's like, I think we have like, what should the boundaries be? And then how do we address impacted families? Like, I'm not opposed to this map necessarily. I just want to try to minimize impact on kids moving.
Well, and
right?
I think, I mean, they reduced it quite significantly
Yes.
from the
Yep.
first go-around to the second
Correct.
go-around.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is why I was more concerned about the plan moving forward for that transition. And when we were talking about it, we all said around this table that it's adults that are making more of the deal about this than kids, because kids can
Well,
adjust, so.
Can I just say that, while I understand that, kids don't probably have the means to communicate their
Yeah.
concerns
Correct.
other than directly in the building to their
Yes.
teachers, and the adults have to advocate for their
Absolutely.
students, so I just
Okay.
want to frame that.
can I ask, if we did this
Yes.
change, right?
E1,
Let me rephrase it. If we did my proposal,
okay,
uh,
just Pinnacle neighborhood.
just the Pinnacle neighborhood, right? And then allowing the Coslano neighborhood to feed into Highview as well. You would leave Autumn Hill to Eastview for now, because that's an entire neighborhood block. When we do whatever the major change, Autumn Hill would come back. Yes, it would be a move, but what they're coming back to a move that would be more permanent when they end up moving. But you're sitting at, you would have Highview sitting at about 85 to closer, and then if Coslano comes in, you're sitting at about lower, maybe upper 80% for the next year-ish or so. Would that be satisfactory
No.
with the only move that we make in elementary, because there isn't a need to make a move?
I'm not aligned with that because 85% is not using the classrooms. We're over capacity on classroom spaces already. So then again, like the things that are occurring there now, when we talk about an optimal learning environment, we have DAPE classes happening in the hallway because the DAPE gym is now an art room, and the 5th grade classroom is in the STEM room, and the 2nd grade classroom is in, all these different spaces. So even if we only adjust to 85%, there are still students that are not in an optimal learning environment, when if we just made that decision now and evened out the buildings, they would be. So then, I have to think about, yes, it's hard. This is a hard discussion, and I understand that people are upset because anytime your kid has to move, it is not the scenario that we want. Like, none of us sitting around this table wanted to be making a decision about moving students again after we just did it 2 years ago.
But we don't have
like,
to.
I don't want to prolong it. I just want to, any way we move the line, kids are moving. These kids,
Maybe-
those kids, everybody's,
Yeah.
people are moving, and we have to shift so many students out of Highview that it has to impact more than one building, because then we don't want to put this building over capacity. It's a very,
We're shifting,
Fragile-
we're shifting 150
fragile thing.
students, and then we're done.
If
but it
the-
still doesn't leave an
Okay,
optimal
but-
learning
yeah,
environment,
Can
the
I just say,
overcapacity.
So what happens in that design at Cherry View in terms of its,
Cherry View goes up to about 83%.
87.8%.
Yep.
Which again, so then
Eight
we have
hundred
2
eleven
buildings that are
students.
over capacity.
Yep.
So,
But the change is minimal, is what I'm saying.
The change is minimal, but you still have,
And
then
then
you're
and then
just
you
sharing
do-
the pain, because then you have 2 buildings that are over capacity, that do not have all of the kids just having class in regular classrooms. They're in different spaces that weren't intended for classrooms, and you're doing that now to 2 buildings, when if we just redrew the boundaries, that wouldn't happen at all. That's what I'm saying.
it sounds like many of us are maybe interested, and even you, in the E1 plan, eventually, maybe, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about like how might intra-district transfer work, or how could this grandfather idea, could anything like that play out, right? Is that
Yeah.
kind of where you're at, Matt, and Tony, you too?
Yeah, and the challenge
Kim,
with,
maybe you?
and I would even say on intra-district transfer, I know there's certain requirements, right? Like, you're not gonna get busing, or it has to be classrooms. But the reality is, we add busing and we add classrooms as needed anyways if somebody moves into that neighborhood. And we lose busing or classrooms or adjust it if somebody moves out of the neighborhood. So yeah, I would be curious to see how it would play out. Because I think getting to the E1 model or map, or even providing that certainty for the future would be good for the district. I'm just wondering if we could use a different approach, a slower approach to get there, so it has less of an impact on kids. And I don't know.
I don't think there'll be a slow approach, because if you're gonna make this, if you wanna get to that point, then you gotta rip the Band-Aid, say, we messed up over two years ago, we gotta redo the whole thing, everyone's gotta move,
But
period.
No, I mean, for Highview.
Well, it's not
Highview.
even Highview, we would have to make changes for Eastview, we got a ton of stuff coming on the west of 185th, you've got Ranch, and even at Lake Marion area, you've got Barris, Amelia, Cedar, Kayla Crossings. I mean, that alone could actually add an additional 200 kids, guys.
But
Like, that's a lot of people.
In a year? I mean, that's the thing, like.
Not in a year, but.
Yeah.
Well,
have-
if we don't know if it's
we
coming
have
in a
time.
year, then we do a short Band-Aid and let's see what actually materializes over the next year. And then we actually have the data to say, where are we gonna move kids in 27?
But
And we
already
may
have
be
some of that
moving them
data.
again.
But
We already
isn't
have
the-
We're
some of
not
that
moving
data.
Yeah,
them, the
isn't
only
the
ones
plan
that we're
based on
moving
that?
is Pinnacle, you guys. That would be the only
Right.
move
No,
we make.
the plan is based on
Yes.
growth. My
Right.
whole thing is if we do the readjustment right now, then we've got a number of schools that are at 65%.
Yes.
Or whatever, right? And they don't
Let
need
it
to be
rip
at
the thermo-
65% right now, or
Yes.
even for the next 2 years.
Well, I don't think they'd be at 65% because of the other development areas across our boundaries. They are gonna go. And so it might actually help us that they are low for whatever reason, that they might catch up. But
Well, eventually. They will,
Eventually.
And that's the goal of E1.
But we would have
So
a
catch
truer
up.
picture in 12 months of how many developments are actually here, how many kids are actually in those developments, and then we create a design that makes sense, gives us a chance to think through, do we transition Orchard Lake's Impact Academy model? Do we go back into a different approach? And when we look at Orchard Lake, is that a building that we want to continue, or do we want to transition that out? You have some more time to think through for that much larger picture versus, and then you give families, you give students stability for a 3-year term in their current design that's already socioeconomic, whatever already approved by Teamworks that was done a year and a half ago, and then we're set for elementary. That's my position. Well, let me rephrase that. That's my proposal. But if there isn't alignment, then we'll do the massive change, and then I'll go to page 2.
So I get what you're saying.
Thank you.
I understand what you're saying. I think my concern from a school district standpoint is that if we do the move now and not gradually, it's easier for district staff to plan for staffing, classroom sizes, all of that. I think it leaves so many different question marks with, we're just leaving a lot to chance on how some of that happens instead of just making the decisions now, which makes it easier for us to plan. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible because we've never really done it that way. But I do have reservations about not just doing the whole boundary change and the graduated system. I think about all the planning that goes into staffing and
Well, the only
But we
change
everything,
would
like
be-
it just, and transportation.
Yeah,
I just
understand.
think it's.
But the only change is that Pinnacle area that has 151 kids, it impacts 2 schools, 1 neighborhood.
I'm not in alignment with
and
that
that's
plan.
it.
I'm talking about the graduated plan. I'm not in alignment with that plan because I don't think we need 2 buildings above capacity when we can fix it all now.
So I know in a slide at one of our meetings from the district, it talked about priority going to the current 5th and 8th graders for interdistrict. Is that true?
That's
It's
correct.
on the,
Or, and multiple movers, I think, is the other
Adding
group.
them as a priority. That's good.
Hypothetically, if all 5th grade families chose to, or they wanted to do interdistrict and all 8th grade, could we accommodate that?
Depends on what you mean by accommodate.
Yeah, yes,
And again, coming to Michael's point, we need to know what the criteria is. Do we push them up to 85% and make it uncomfortable, as Director Baker was pointing out, because now they're at 85% and they have to adjust learning spaces for that? Or do we make it 80%, or do we make it 75%? Well, then obviously not all of them are going to be able to go to all the schools of their choice.
Sure.
And
So-
just,
so-
even if they could do the transportation.
Because for some of these schools, it's pretty low, the number of students who are moving out, right? So
Some of them.
in theory, the fifth graders could stay,
I-
but obviously not.
I'm not aligning with double transportation, just leverage the.
Oh, I'm
inter-
not saying
yeah,
that. I'm
okay.
just saying
The
interdistrict, the
interdistrict.
interdistrict
Yeah.
process.
So then let's look at Highview then, in the current model, if that's, so if we do the future state design in M2 or E2, or whatever it is, in the current design, how many students are active in Highview right now? Because I don't think it's 650.
In the current design?
Yeah, and, I'm sorry, not in the current design, yeah, I'm sorry, in the proposed design.
In the proposed?
Echo 1,
Yeah, Echo One, that's what you guys want. Because Caslano hasn't been built out, Autumn Hills hasn't built out, the bottom right-hand side hasn't been built out. So I'm just curious, how many active students would actually be there in September?
In September?
Yeah.
So for 26,
You're looking at maybe
27?
300.
No.
Okay,
I
maybe
think it's
477.
477.
477, all
Yeah.
right. So then,
Which is 68%.
Yeah.
But there's still growth going on in that neighborhood. While you're looking at something, can I ask a transportation question? Is our transportation, is it per route or is it per student on how we're billed for that?
I'm not understanding your question.
Like for our contract, like-
It's $8,000 for a bus, 50 kids a year.
Okay. So like, I'm trying to consider the impact of like, if you have a neighborhood where you're gradually building out and then that adds multiple stops, it also adds multiple routes. So I'm trying to think financially of what that impact is based on our current contract.
You're not billed per student, you're billed per route.
Okay, thank you.
Tony, did you want to say something earlier? I'm sorry.
Well, I was just like, and the conversation was about the fifth graders, you know, if everybody stayed at Highview, what that would look like. And it's not going to be everybody, but you kind of want to get the sense of it. Just breaking it down by like if, you know, I'd say maybe, you know, 100, 75, 50, 25, just getting those numbers would just kind of be helpful, just get a sense as far as like how much the capacity would just break down. If everybody, you know, because obviously I think the ones that moved previously, because when they first moved to Highview, I think those would be the ones that would want to stay, and then you'd get a breakdown after that of people saying, okay, I have to move once, maybe I'm okay with that. You'll probably get a little bit more flexibility there. And just kind of knowing the numbers as far as like how those broke down would help shine some light on what kind of capacity issues there might be if we did grandfather this in.
So grandfathering at Highview would mean the fourth graders would stay, plus,
Movers move in.
plus movers move in. So we would, how many fourth graders we have at Highview?
And, yeah, just getting a sense.
132.
152.
132.
32.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm a little older than I used
That's
to be.
fine.
Can't hear as well.
But it also means that the numbers on the lower end, the first graders and the kindergartners, those numbers are different as well, because those are just moving there for the first time. It's only the you know, they're, do you see what I'm saying? I mean,
I think our issue with Highview is like, I mean, that's like,
but you see what, I
The
mean,
beast here,
I'm
right?
doing a terrible job of articulating this, I'm sorry, but you kind of get a sense of what I'm saying. It's just that the double movers, obviously, you don't want to have to move twice, and those people would want to stay where they're at.
yeah. I looked at those numbers in Infinite Campus, and I really appreciate, after our December board meeting, looking at how to reduce the number of multiple movers, and the new plan definitely does that. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, how can we get this down even more? The problem is, they're basically all at Highview, the rest of the multiple movers.
They're
And
there.
so,
Yes.
and we need to take students out of Highview.
Yes.
So I don't know if there's a way to reduce our multiple movers, unfortunately. Like,
There isn't.
some neighborhood is going to have to move.
and then Highview is like super dense, like it's
Yeah.
the most dense out of all the neighborhoods. It's just,
Yeah.
it's problematic.
For Highview, the 477 number, that's the active number of students, right, there? And so, have you included the bottom half of Caslano in that 477 number?
Whatever we had in the proposal that was proposed earlier in the week.
Yep,
That's 477.
Okay, so for the bottom half that they're building homes and whatever estimate number of kids we expect there, is that included in the 477?
There's a growth factor in there based on our district growth for that.
Yes, the short answer is yes.
Because we have 53 kids already on the top half of Caslano. I'm assuming you're adding 53 kids on the bottom half. And that should be part of the 477 number, or is that part of the 477 number? Okay.
It is projection.
That's your projection. So then west of Highview in Autumn Hill, how many students are you expecting there?
West,
We
I don't
didn't
know
do
what-
projections based on particular neighborhoods.
neighborhoods.
We did a
It's a growth
growth
factor.
So
for the whole school.
But what number are you using? I mean, how are you doing the growth? Because if I subtract 53 kids from Caslano, because they're not there yet, out of the 477, you got 427 kids in that building. If you added a growth factor for Autumn Hill, and those people aren't even there yet, and you subtract another 50 kids out of that 477 number, you've got 377 kids active at Highview. So next fall, you've got a school that's at 60% capacity. That's what I'm hearing.
We cannot with fidelity predict which people are going to purchase which houses and where.
Agreed. Yep.
So we go off of a growth factor of 1.032, which is what
Per home.
over the whole school, over the whole district. And we apply that to the schools. So that 477 number includes all the current kindergarten through fourth grade who would be staying in Highview, plus the projected kindergarten numbers, plus the growth factor.
Chair Cameron, I just want to be mindful that you wanted to stop at 5:30, and it is
Potentially, yes.
5:15.
Yep.
So if we're going to direct the district to change some of the criteria or have anything ready for Tuesday, we need to provide some direction.
Yep, I agree. It seems that, I realize we're missing 2 board members tonight, but that at least those that were here tonight want to continue to pursue E1. However, I think better understanding how inter-district transfer, I think we know the process, like technically how a family would enroll in it, but what is the capacity? Like we can say. Go ahead.
We have the threshold set, so if it's a low growth school, then we will set that threshold at 80%.
For all schools?
For low growth
yep.
schools, and then if it's a high growth school, it'll be 70%. So
Okay.
if it goes up and down,
Provide room.
based on where the actual enrollment is, if there's, 3% space, then we could offer inter-district for that 3%. Okay, so it'll depend on what the actual enrollment is minus the threshold based on if it's a low growth or a high growth school. Now, if we continue to have enrollment and it goes above 70%, that's okay, because that's what we designed it to do. And if we have to add an FTE because we have too many students, then we can look to add additional intra-district to kind of fill up that classroom for that FTE. Again, that gets into the finer science, but we will maximize the attendance or the enrollment at that school based on our number of FTEs that were required and then the threshold. We expect some of the schools to go over the threshold. That's by design.
Okay.
And then if there's some space in there, we're gonna manage it down to the seat to make sure that we can get the maximum number of kids in that school without exceeding the threshold, with intra-district enrollees.
So low growth, you said was 80. High growth, you said 70?
70.
So looking at the proposal then, Cherry View, JFK, Lakeview, and Orchard Lake would not be accepting any interdistrict.
Unless we increase our FTEs due to increased enrollment, yes.
Okay.
Now, of course, the enrollment, the actual enrollment could drop, for some reason, and then obviously we would,
Sure, right. Yeah.
put kids in there.
Oh, can we go back to the map of Orchard or of Oak Hills? Are you guys aligned that Oak Hills cuts halfway into Cherry View, and so on the north of Cherry View, like they're all going to Oak Hills, and then the left side of Oak Hills has always been in Oak Hills. Now they're going to Christina Huddleston. Like, you guys want to make that change? I don't want to make that change.
Can you show me what
Yeah,
he's talking about?
what's the rationale for that?
Well, I guess I'd like to know the rationale. Why are we making the change?
Right.
That looks like.
So if you go back to the
Yeah.
previous model, so that's the current model today, how there's a cut line off of
All
Ipava
the way to the left.
for Oak Hills. And then there's this massive forest, well, not a forest, but there's
Yeah, the preserve.
preserved by
Yeah.
Oak Hills. But the new design, like we're going right across Cherry Woods and Shady Oak Shore, so I'm just looking to understand, why are you just making a cut somewhere in the middle?
So coming back to the answer to the other question, it was a matter of increasing the enrollment to meet the target at Oak Hills and decreasing the enrollment at Cherry View to be able to absorb these students in the, just south of Dodd there, but north of Highview.
For Voyager.
I'm
You're
blanking
anticipating
on-
Voyager to increase Glacier and Voyager Avenue or growth?
Let's see, we've got the system being slow, the Hidden Creek, Havana, Hawksbill. I'm not getting the development name in there at the moment, sorry.
Was that an area where, in the last move, some of that area on the east that Brian's talking about went to Cherry View? And now, like, I'm looking at the area moves, it looks
Are
like
you
it's,
talking just south of Dodd,
in the red there, kind of the outlined
in the red?
south red area. It feels like a group went to Cherry View. Wade, you're in here, maybe you know. A group went to Cherry View from Oak Hills, and then now they're going back to Oak Hills, and we're taking out a different chunk that currently are at Oak Hills and putting them at Christina.
So a good chunk of those would be returning to Oak Hills.
So is there a reason like those two groups were swapped, basically? Is that kind of your question?
Well, yeah, I mean, the left side they're going to Oak Hills, they're going to Christina, and just, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess how many students are in that lower section that, the new addition to Oak Hills? I mean, how many students is that? And then how many students are on the left side that were taken off? I guess what I'm trying to get to is that if the more consistency or like the least amount of change that we can make, if it makes sense, to still keep that Oak Hills at a maximized number, the better. Or are we making changes just to make changes? I don't know.
We're not making changes to
I-
make changes. We
fair.
never make changes to make
Yes.
changes. It's a very deliberate process.
Because the proposal gets you at 656 students in Cherry View. So and if your target is 85%, right? If that's what you're trying to get to.
No,
at
80%.
80%, 925.
Because that's 0.7%.
740, so you can add about 100 kids is what we're proposing for Cherry View. So that you're anticipating about 100 extra kids for growth.
And the southeast corner.
Yep.
That I believe you were referencing.
Yes.
Of the proposal there for Oak Hills has 98 students.
For
Your
Glacier and
100
Voyager.
students.
Yeah, yep, that makes sense, because they've got about, I'm
Yep.
using a 1.5 per each home.
Okay.
But can we get there? Can we get there in a different way?
Brian, can I ask you a question first?
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying about you're interested in delaying kind of basically a version of E1 till next year. Some new plan, right?
Yes. There isn't a new
And the
project.
reason is that you're thinking it would give us a year of new growth to see what happens, but also minimize 1 year of multiple movers.
Yes.
I think my only my thought about that regarding the multiple movers, because that was my goal too. I didn't want to move kids again. And looking at that, almost all of them are at Highview. They're going to be multiple movers, really, no matter if we make a decision now or
Right.
later.
Well, for the second grade, well, yes and no. I mean, if you're moving from Eastview, so if you're in third grade, you're multiple mover, you move to Highview, fourth grade, fifth grade, you're done. Second grade, right? You move to, third grade, fourth
Yep.
grade, and then
Yep.
fifth. And it's gonna be your first graders, second and third, fourth, and then they'd have to move to fifth grade. So eventually someone would get, upset.
Yep.
But you're lowering the number of population that
That
gets,
was multiple
that's multiple movers. And there isn't, when you look at the, when you look at the attendance areas for all of our schools, yes, some of them are at a lower number, I get that. But there isn't a drastic need to do this massive change, in my mind, right away. Now, 85% for Highview, it's better than 105, right? And we at
But-
Cherry View, we've had,
But I think if you do that, it's just gonna become this, you move it to 85 this year, you're gonna have to move it again next year. Meanwhile, new builds are happening. So it's just gonna be this constant,
We're creating multiple movers.
but
yeah.
we're moving one more time the next time. So I'm not asking us to move every year.
Sure.
It's just more of do a small change now to fix the immediate need, and then do the massive change the following year, where the community members, parents, students have had at least 3 years in their existing building before changing them, versus just being there for 2 years and now you're going wherever we end up putting you at.
I'd
that's
say,
not
that- I'd say the downside about that is that at this point next year, when you're going over all these boundaries decision, all the emails that we've gotten from the last 2 months, all parents are going to be angry that we're changing the boundaries again. There's a level of boundary fatigue where it's just, okay, what are you guys doing? You
Now,
did it 2 years
yeah.
ago, you did it a year ago, and now
But
you're
the
going to do it
people
again.
that are moving now.
I would submit, if I may,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that the community is currently in boundary fatigue.
Yeah.
Right.
So I
Yes,
just want to say that out loud.
yes.
But the people that we're getting emails for are the people doing all of this change. The people that we would be getting emails would be for the small population right now. And so we tell the parents, for all those that may be impacted in any capacity, hang tight, don't worry about it, stay in your place for another year, so you have a total of 3 years versus 2. But know that after the third year, we have to make a change across the board.
But I think you're only thinking about the impact on the movers. You're not thinking about the impact within the buildings being over capacity still. Because it's not optimal learning environments in those spaces when we can't even use, we're out of classroom space. We're in the art room, we're in the gym, we're in all these different spaces. So there's an impact to students there too. It's not just moving that's an impact, it's being in these spaces that can't accommodate the growth right now, that's an impact as well. So instead of us alleviating one of the impacts to student, the desired daily student experience, we're just delaying it, and now we're spreading it over here to this building, so now we have 2 buildings with impact, not only in the classroom because we're out of classroom space, but now we have movers as well. When we could at least, I get it, moving's bad, right? It's hard, but then at least we take care of the impact as far as not having the optimal learning spaces. Then that's just off the table. That's not a concern anymore. So we're not alleviating any concerns by your plan except for just delaying them and then causing more.
So I
The
think-
causing more would be what we're doing right now. I mean,
I
that's
know,
what
but
we're gonna do.
We're not solving any problems by doing that.
We're solving the immediate need, which is overcapacity at
We're
105%.
still over capacity. 85% is still over capacity.
That is a arbitrary number because we shouldn't even be at 105 in the first place.
Right, so
shouldn't- right.
why aren't we just
So
taking care of the issue?
But we're
so here's
solving,
what I'm wondering, can I jump in?
Yes.
Sorry, because I don't know if you're gonna agree.
we're not gonna agree.
Yeah,
But,
we're gonna-
but, no,
Um,
Tony, what are you thinking? Because we're not gonna go down an iterative path, then I'll rest my case, you guys share, my point of view,
Yeah.
and then let's make a change to
Well,
the
can I jump
larger.
in? Because it's 5:29 and we don't have to stop right at 5:30, but I think so we're gonna talk about this obviously again on Tuesday, with the full board. But we will not have the capability, most likely, to be able to manipulate like this, right? And so if there are things where you look at the map and you say, I'm curious about how many are here, or what would this look like, in terms of manipulating the data or the math, I think getting those questions to either me or Michael, by Monday, so that we can have answers to those. I don't think we should be putting you all on the spot in that moment at that board meeting, not having the technology available at that moment. And if there are other things board members need to know in order to make an informed decision, to either send that to Michael or me, and I think be ready to move towards a decision. I think I have heard from the superintendent, from HR, from building principals, we need to make a decision for staffing. And if we don't, we will get ourselves in trouble in terms of hiring, moving teachers to be ready for next year. And so we need to be in alignment with that with our administration to make sure that we can set up the scenario the best for kids that we can. Even though, and I think people have said this, at the end of the day, like, some kids are going to have to move, and that is not a great, it doesn't make me feel good to make that decision. And, if we could wave a magic wand and something happened years ago when many of us weren't even on the board, maybe, but we can't do that. And I think we're in this situation now and we need to solve it. And the goal, I think, that we've given the district has been long-term growth, and I think it's.
I'd rather have a new criteria is make it geographically logical, period.
So I think we ran many scenarios with different lines drawn in places, right? And none of them have materialized, right?
We can't just rely
So,
on geographics
I think
because of
there's
the other factors considering demographics.
There are no there's no statutes that says it has to be that way.
If you make our schools not racially balanced, yes, there is laws against that, because then now you're segregating a population in a specific school.
Send me that when you're ready.
So I think the other thing, Brian, I'll just say with that, and I do think our schools will, even with the new plan, are not going to be balanced in terms of EL and free and reduced lunch students. In the free and reduced lunch, we're ranging from 11 to almost 28%. That's a pretty big range. And so regardless, we're going to have to think about, given the demographics of our schools, what are the resources that we need to put in place to help students succeed there?
Totally agree.
And when we're holding, and I agree with the academic metrics and trying to get our district to achieve those, in order to do that, schools are going to need to be resourced differently.
Yes.
And so I think we already have pretty dramatic disparities amongst the schools with this plan.
I think I'd like to see a geographical, logical manner, because I agree that the demographics will change, but from a centers of excellence concept, you can leverage, if you got a high population in there that has an XYZ demographics, we can have dedicated resources 100% to target whatever, we need to from a skill set there,
Well, and I think
versus
that's-
having one in every
Yep.
single building just because.
I don't think that is the model right now, and I hope that's not the plan going forward. And I think if you look at those demographics, we're already creating what you're saying in a way. Like, there's gonna be 3 or 4 of our schools that have a pretty dramatic free and reduced lunch rate compared to others, same with EL. And so we're gonna have, English language, so we're gonna have to, I'm not saying that for you, I'm saying that for the audience. We're gonna have to figure out how our schools are staffed to appropriately work and support the students that are enrolled there. So, differently than we are now. Yeah, Douglas.
If I may, if geography is one of them, I need specific definition of what geography means. Don't cross a major road. Well, what's a major road? Is it a county road? Is it something over 45 miles per hour? I need specific definitions of what that is. Otherwise, everybody's going to have a different opinion of what geography means.
Yeah.
I don't think we move forward with a plan to change anything unless we have a majority that agrees on it.
Yeah, right now, from who is here, I think the will of the board is to continue with an E1 plan. But I think between now and next Tuesday, if there are suggestions or questions from board members, that they need to get those in advance to be able to have further discussion. And I mean, it'd be helpful when all 7 of us are able to be part of this.
And it would also be helpful to just have a transition plan,
Yeah.
basically, described and laid out for the board as far as priorities, the number of people impacted, double movers by grade, particularly with Highview, as far as like if we do grandfather in, how many people would actually stay there, and how long would it take them to alleviate the
Yeah.
overcapacity?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, would that be possible to like get a feel for like, if you let the current 5th graders stay, then you let the current 4th graders stay, how long until we're in a bind?
But we're not concerned about the current 5th graders.
Right.
We're concerned about the 4th
Fourth
graders
graders.
going into
Right,
5th grade.
right,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
right.
And just kind of what
Yeah,
a
yeah,
transition
sorry, yeah.
plan
Yeah.
would.
Yep.
Yeah,
Which, by
Douglas?
the way, that is the largest elementary
Right.
class we have at
Yeah.
the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Which,
132.
And then consider with that if you allow the 4th going into 5th to stay, what about their younger siblings?
Yes.
correct.
Yeah,
Then we haven't even talked about.
We can't do both. I
Yeah.
can tell you that we would not be able to do both.
Yeah.
and both articulated again.
4th going into 5th
Yes,
and
siblings.
siblings.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
can we, so obviously
Which
my
will
proposal is
frustrate
dead.
parents just as much because now you're going to two
Two
different,
different schools.
Yeah.
well, potentially.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask about Lakeview? I know that E1 has it projected to be at about 80%, and you have the capacity to just add 29 kids, and then you're at capacity, is what I'm hearing. But Lakeview currently is zoned to have 566 kids. It's going to go all the way to the west. How many kids do you have anticipated joining that area? Because I know over by the movie, because does the movie theater area include Lakeview? Are they part of Lakeview, or are they part of Lake Marion?
Are you referring to the Ritter Farm?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry.
development north of
Yes.
the-
Yep.
Let me double check and make sure I don't give you
think that's
incorrect
the-
information.
Yeah,
on
because
that.
I got like, for whatever reason, my estimates have us sitting at about 118 additional kids to be added. Plus you've got the ranch area that would be at another 21 kids. Yellowstone has about 55. My concern is that in the next year or for long-term growth, you've got 200 kids that might be coming out of that pocket. And so is,
That currently and in the proposed model is Lake Marion.
you have them going to Lake Marion?
Lake Marion.
So,
Yes, sir.
so get 102 available, including the growth that you're anticipating. So so I want to make sure I
And
understand.
Add into that Lake Marion is actually on the decline side under the current model. They are declining, and under the proposed model, until those developments come online and start producing families and students,
Yeah,
it's on the decline side.
got it. But-
And we are banking on the decline to make further room for Ritter Farm and any other developments out
Got it.
on the Credit River side.
But you're gonna have Barris and Amelia in Lake Marion as well, correct? Is that in your design model?
Barris Ridge is
Barris.
currently
Barris.
in Lake Marion.
Got it. And then Cedar and Kayla Crossing, I mean, you've got a ton of kids that will be growing in that pocket. And so I guess my biggest concern is that, do we have enough capacity? The whole west side of Lake Marion, is that enough space? Do we even have enough? I don't know. I think Lake Marion's gonna be in a tight spot.
I think
Depending on how that rolls out, yes.
Yeah.
in long term, I mean, is this where facilities planning comes into play? Right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So of the 4 of us that are here still, are you comfortable? If you have additional questions or concerns, you can send them to Michael and he can triage them or group them as necessary so that we can have further conversation?
Can
I
we
did
make sure we
appreciate
have them
his
by
comment.
Monday morning?
Yep, Monday,
Pretty
what time do you
please.
want them, Lucas?
6 a.m. Monday morning.
So send them Sunday night by midnight so that they're in the inbox. Okay, with that, we don't need to vote, but I'll adjourn the meeting at 5:39. Sorry, I went a little over.
Oh, you want to talk about middle school? Are we done?
Oh,
I mean, we got them here.
I think we can say middle school and
Or not.
or do you want to do middle school tonight?
Well,
I
Okay.
thought we were aligned with
Middle school 1 is,
Yeah.
is all that is on the docket, we think,
Yep.
I'll say, I know that M2, we have to do some refinement to.
Yep.
I think among the leadership of the district, we've come to that issue. But if you want to talk about M1, sure.
So you'll be presenting an M2 at Tuesday?
No.
No, sorry.
Well,
what did you say?
we'll talk, yeah, I mean, M2 is not presented for decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I see, yeah, sorry.
I think the question that I have is that right now, in the current interactive map, there is a top right-hand side of McGuire, right? And then the future design is to move them all to Kenwood, right? Is what I'm hearing, or is what I'm seeing.
So can I ask you a question before we launch into like the actual lines?
Maybe.
And that
we
is
can
just
add this
like,
way, too.
no, it's, do you like that the middle school lines align with the high school lines?
Oh, I wasn't even looking at that.
Like, I think that's, like, I looked at the current high school map and tried to overlay it, and it looks like it mirrors. And I think, for me, that's the most important thing.
With Kenwood splitting, yes.
With the Kenwood still split, right, of course.
And I think it's 70-30, is that right?
Yeah. it's
Under the
just-
proposal, it'd be 75-35.
I think the only concern we had at the middle school was the small percentage of kids that were going to McGuire.
It's on the top right,
From
yeah.
east, from Queen
Yes,
Anne.
yes,
Wait, why would they be going to McGuire?
Right.
Because you got that cut.
yeah. Just, I'm fine with buildings that are split. I think I agree with Director Cameron that it helps if there are a larger percentage of students moving with them, so they're not one of, 5 kids that move to McGuire in that, you know what I mean, in that building.
Yeah.
Is there a way that, would it make more sense for Kenwood to go further east to pick up more kids versus having, well, because you need the extra 50 kids to go to McGuire, and you got to get them out of somewhere.
Correct.
What
Yeah.
is the problem you're trying to solve? I'm just curious.
Oh,
Because we're talking about the one group of kids.
I don't want
that's
people
going to
driving all the
McGuire.
way. I don't want people having to drive all the way down, because that doesn't make sense. That's all. Like,
do that from the high school.
Yeah, they do that for the high school. The kids that are farthest north in our district go to South High School.
This is true.
Like.
oh, I'm not looking at the high school map. I'm
I
sorry.
know, but like
okay,
that-
here, it-
yeah.
there.
Yeah, that
okay.
same neighborhood goes to south, yes.
South.
So it's,
McGuire's still further, but still, yeah, I understand.
Are you okay with that?
You know what? Probably not, but it's all right. Let me do some more reading. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'll send a note to whoever to the team by Monday, and well.
I mean, I
decide-
appreciate you
the board
thinking
will
about
decide.
the drive times. I do. For me, the priority is kids stay together, their peers, and so.
Well, if that's the
I-
case, then you use the same concept for elementary. Whatever.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, fine.
I'm just talking about middle school.
Fair, fair.
But, okay, Tony, Kim, anything else to add about middle school? For the M1 model?
Cool.
We're not making a decision about the other one.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay, with that, okay, now we're officially adjourning. Sorry, 5:43. Thanks, everybody.
Cool.
Have a good weekend.
do you have something where you're keeping track of that for Kim?